Hey everyone, so it's no secret. Right-wing parties don't tend to like LGBT people. Yeah, if you're an LGBT person like me, or even someone who just hasn't been living on a rock for the last few centuries, you'll be well aware that right-wing parties tend to run on a platform of anti-LGBT rhetoric and policy. A lot of us just take this as given and we know it just to be the default. But have we ever stopped to inquire as to why? Why is it that right-wing or conservative parties are so obsessed with pushing this agenda of anti-LGBT? Today, I'm going to give you the secret reason, which honestly, these parties really don't want you to know, and I mean they really don't want you to know, as to why they tend to push these policies. I am a former political advisor. I used to work very deeply in the political sphere, and I'm also an LGBT activist now, an advocate. So I want to give you this secret so that you can understand it, and so hopefully we can better fight it. So, right-wing parties, yeah? What is their main job? Their main job is to support the interests of the rich. Okay, that's no secret. That's what they're there for. Okay, so wherever you go in the world, right-wing parties, conservative parties will be supported and funded by the wealthy, big businesses, and the kind of the upper middle class, right? That's just what they're there for, right? Left wing support the poor generally, and the right wing are for the rich. That's just how it goes, okay? Easy. So why would a party whose main job it is to support the rich be concerned with LGBT people? Right? Because LGBT people aren't necessarily poor, they're not necessarily rich. It doesn't really have anything to do with your economic background, and like surely hating on LGBT people is not going to help the rich in any way? Or is it? So why would it be that they would waste their precious political capital, right, their precious energy, their precious time in pushing for these anti-LGBT policies? Doesn't really seem to make sense. Or does it? So right-wing parties have a bit of a historic problem on their hands. Normally, in most Western developed capitalistic societies, a huge proportion of the wealth of the nation lies in the hands of the super rich. Okay? These are the people who the right-wing parties want to support. Okay? And there is a huge proportion of the population who suffer from hardships and difficulties because all of that wealth is situated in the hands of a tiny few. Okay, so if it is your job to support the interests of that tiny few, yeah, if that's your job, then you've got a problem on your hands. You've got to deal with this absolutely huge mass of people who, if they found out that that was really the reason for their difficulties, for their hardships, then they are going to cause a big problem. They are very numerous. You know, we've seen it in many places. You know, the elite do not want the people to realize their lot, to rise up against them. Okay, so that is a huge concern for these parties who are built to uphold the interests of the elite. Okay, so they've really got to think about this, right? And so while they push their economically conservative policies, right? So kind of keeping taxes low, keeping spending low, keeping public services underfunded, and not kind of wasting the wealthy people's money on things to help the poor, healthcare, education, pensions, all the rest of it, right? They need to come up with an excuse as to why they can't share their wealth, right? This is maybe the most important function of a right-wing party, okay, to maintain the excuses for why we cannot redistribute wealth, right? So they are going to expend a huge amount of time and energy and passion in explaining to the majority of the population as to why they have to just be fine with their hardship. They can't have more spending on public services. They can't redistribute the wealth. They can't do anything, right? It's all a lie because they've got plenty of money. It's being hoarded by the rich. Okay, so how do they do this? I mean, technically, it's a lie, right? Because there is enough money to go around. So how did they keep most of the population kind of under control and kind of accepting of this status quo? Well, it is a time-honored, absolutely classic tactic, okay, which is old as the hills, to give the majority of the population an idea of an underclass over whom they can feel that they have power, and towards whom the right-wing parties can shift the blame for the economic problems of the mass of the population. Okay, let me explain. So what these parties do is they create a scapegoat, right? So they say to the normal, everyday person on the street, they say, oh, there's this group of people, right? Now, it might be LGBT people, it might be migrants, it might be people of color, it might be something else, right? Doesn't really matter, okay? They say, oh, look, there's this group of people. It's normally a very small group of people or a vulnerable group of people, right? Whatever it might be. Okay? This group of people are the reason for your problems. Okay? Now, how clever is that? Because what you've done is you've shifted the blame from the people who are really to blame, who are the rich, who are hoarding all the wealth, right? And you've turned it onto this random group of people who generally can't stand up for themselves because they're already marginalized in society. Yeah. And you've blamed them for all the problems, right? We see this with Donald Trump in America, blaming migrants and immigration, for the economic problems. Absolutely ludicrous. It just, any economist will tell you that's just completely false. You have the Conservatives in the UK, absolutely obsessed with migrants as well. And you have both of those parties as well, very, very concerned with, trans, non-binary people, the queer agenda, and all the rest of it. Why are they doing this? Because they are creating the idea of an underclass who can be blamed for the problems of society. So that nobody realizes the truth, which is that the problems of society are caused by the fact that there is wealth being hoarded by a tiny percentage. Now, if you look at the United Kingdom, for example, okay, the 50 richest families in the UK, okay, the 50 richest families in the UK own more wealth than the bottom half of the population of the UK. That's 33 million people. Okay, just let that sink in. In the US, it's even worse. The top 1%, okay, the top 1% wealthiest people in the US own more wealth, get this, than the bottom 90% of the population. I'm just leaving a pause for that to sink in. That is the reality. There is enough money to go around. There is enough money for public services. There is enough money for education. There is enough money for housing. There is enough to go around for everybody. It is a lie that we live in this scarcity and that we have to cut public sector funding and we have to cut this and we cut that and children need to go hungry and, pensioners need to go cold in the winter and, all of it's a lie. Okay. And the right-wing parties are very, very good at spinning that lie. Right? Oh, it's very complicated. Oh no, we can't redistribute wealth. Oh no, we can't raise taxes. We can't. Yeah, the smoke screen and trans people. Oh, big danger there. What on earth do trans people have to do with the price of eggs? What on earth do LGBT people have to do with the very real economic problems that our nations are experiencing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If anything, we create wealth because, as we've seen, when you have higher levels of diversity, you have higher levels of economic performances and whatever. We won't go into that, right? So do you see? And the psychology of this is very clever because, of course, if you're one of those kind of demographics that's being oppressed, then oftentimes it's much easier to oppress another group who you see or you've been told are even lower down than you in society. Yeah, migrants, LGBT people, whoever it might be, than to actually admit that you're being oppressed and to confront that. So the psychology of it is really dark, it's really twisted, but it has been used, unfortunately, for centuries, and you can recognize it and call it out. So I just wanted to share that with you. If you have your own thoughts on this, then please let me know in the comments. I will always try and get back to you if I can. I think this is something that is happening at the moment. We can see it. And I just want people to be aware. If you are an LGBT person or you are somebody who belongs to any other kind of marginalized group and you are feeling this, then know that you're not alone, know that it is not your fault, and know that you are not beneath anybody. You are not the reason for any harm or any problems. Okay, this is a lot of hate coming from people who really just want to cover up their wrongdoing. So thank you for listening. If you think this would be helpful or informative to someone else, then please share it. If you would like some more videos on these type of topics, then check out these coming up, and I will speak to you again very soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.